The Andromedians had conquered everything in their path until they met humanity. For decades, the Andromedian fleet had been the most feared presence in the galaxy. No one could match their technological superiority, their brutal tactics, and their desire to dominate every corner of the cosmos. They crushed colonies, enslaved entire species, and built an empire that stretched across star systems, leaving destruction in their wake. They considered humans insignificant, primitive, too weak to stand up to their might. But that arrogance, that underestimation, would be their undoing. In the heart of the galaxy, humanity, once thought to be little more than a scattered group of colonies, rose from the ashes of defeat. A small group of survivors, led by the indomitable Captain Aidan Cole, had been fighting the Andromedians from the shadows, hiding in the darkest corners of space, building strength, and waiting for the right moment. The Andromedians had always overlooked humanity, never realizing that the very resilience they mocked would one day become their greatest threat. That moment came when the human resistance launched a bold strike against the Andromedian flagship, a mission thought impossible. Outnumbered and outgunned, the resistance infiltrated the heart of Andromedian power, targeting the weapon that had held the galaxy in fear for decades. The battle was fierce, and the odds were astronomical. But when the impossible happened, the resistance didn't just win, they neutralized the weapon. The first major victory of humanity was not just a strategic win, it was a game changer. It sent a message across the galaxy. Humans were not weak. And in that moment, the Andromedians realized the truth. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The Andromedian threat had been neutralized, but the real war was just beginning. Humanity had risen, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The resistance had ignited a spark that would ignite the fires of rebellion and reclaim their place in the stars. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the galaxy's new force to be reckoned with. For as long as anyone in the galaxy could remember, the Andromedians had been the undisputed rulers of the stars. Their ships dominated the void, their technology was centuries ahead of any known species, and their desire for power and control knew no bounds. The Andromedians viewed themselves as the pinnacle of evolution, the perfect race destined to command the universe. They had conquered countless planets, crushed entire species, and forced others into subjugation. For centuries, the galaxy had bowed to their will. But in all their conquest, there was one thing the Andromedians never expected: humanity's return. Humanity had once been a powerful species, a force to be reckoned with, spreading across the stars, building empires, and forging alliances. But millennia ago, during a brutal war with the Andromedians, Earth and its colonies were nearly wiped out. Humanity was left fragmented, scattered across the far reaches of space, a shadow of its former self. Most believed that humanity had faded into obscurity, a memory of a bygone era. The Andromedians, secure in their dominance, saw humanity as little more than a footnote in history. They never anticipated that humanity's survival and eventual resurgence would be their greatest challenge. While the galaxy was divided between the Andromedian Empire and the resistance movements of smaller species, humanity was biding its time. The remnants of human civilization had regrouped in secret, hiding in the far corners of space, waiting for the right moment to strike. The human resistance, a ragtag group of survivors, soldiers, and revolutionaries, was born from this quiet rebellion. Led by Captain Aidan Cole, a former military officer whose family had been destroyed by the Andromedians, the resistance started small but grew stronger with every passing year. They built alliances with other oppressed species who had long lived under the Andromedian thumb, and began to develop technology based on stolen Andromedian blueprints. Humanity's ingenuity, adaptability, and underdog spirit proved to be its greatest assets. The human resistance launched countless covert operations, striking at Andromedian supply lines, sabotaging their warships, and liberating planets. Every victory, no matter how small, fueled a growing belief that the Andromedian Empire was not invincible. But the real turning point came with the discovery of the Andromedian flagship, the heart of their fleet, which housed the weapon capable of wiping out entire planets. This was the weapon the Andromedians had used to keep the galaxy in check, and it was also the one thing that had kept humanity from fighting back with full force. The Resistance had always known that they could never truly defeat the Andromedians until this weapon was neutralized. The challenge was daunting. The flagship was heavily guarded, surrounded by a fleet of advanced warships, and protected by the most formidable defense systems in the galaxy. But Captain Cole and his team were undeterred. They knew the Andromedians were beginning to underestimate humanity again. The time to strike had come. In a daring high-risk mission, the human resistance infiltrated the flagship's outer defenses. Using a combination of guerrilla tactics, hacking, and sheer ingenuity, they infiltrated the heart of the Andromedian fleet, taking down key components of the weapon's defense systems. The mission culminated in a shocking success. The Andromedian weapon was disabled, sending shockwaves through the galaxy and proving that humanity was back. The immediate effects of this victory were profound. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted. Humanity, once dismissed as weak, had proven that it could fight back against the most advanced empire the galaxy had ever known. Resistance groups on other planets were inspired by the victory, and new allies began to rally to the cause. The Andromedians, once confident in their unchallenged reign, were now forced to deal with a rising threat from the species they had long believed to be extinct. But this victory was just the beginning. Humanity had shown it could survive, and now it was ready to thrive. The galaxy was no longer under the Andromedian shadow. The human resistance had just begun to rise, and the Andromedian Empire had underestimated the strength of the human spirit. Now, with their victory over the Andromedians' weapon, the human resistance would lead the fight to liberate every corner of the galaxy. And this time, the Andromedians would learn that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The attack on the Andromedian flagship had been nothing short of a miracle. For months, the human resistance had been planning, gathering intel, and preparing for a strike that would change the course of the war. The Andromedian flagship, a massive fortress of technology and destruction, was known for its nearly impenetrable defenses. It was a floating city, bristling with weapons capable of annihilating entire colonies, and at the center of it all lay the galactic weapon that had kept the galaxy in fear. Captain Aidan Cole knew the risks. No one had ever succeeded in taking down the flagship, and most thought it would be the final word in the war. The Resistance had fought countless small skirmishes, won minor battles, but none of that mattered. This mission, destroying the heart of the Andromedian war machine, was the true test of humanity's resolve. The plan was deceptively simple. Infiltrate the flagship, disable the weapon, and get out alive. Easier said than done. Ryder, the most trusted officer in the Resistance, had been tasked with leading the assault. With his small, stealth ship disguised as debris, he and his crew navigated through the asteroid field surrounding the flagship, slipping past Andromedian patrols. The tension on board was palpable, every person aware that they were about to either deliver the greatest blow to the Andromedians or meet their end in space. But Ryder's determination and his quiet confidence in their abilities set the tone for the team. As they breached the outer defenses of the flagship, chaos erupted. The Resistance's guerrilla tactics took the Andromedians by surprise. Explosions rang out as sabotage teams disabled key weapon systems, while Ryder led his crew to the core, the source of the flagship's destructive weapon. But there was one major challenge. The weapon's core was shielded by the flagship's central control, an area so heavily fortified that it seemed impossible to breach. It was then that Ryder made a split-second decision that would become the defining moment of the battle. Using hacked Andromedian technology, he initiated an emergency override, disabling the shields around the weapon's core. A precise, coordinated strike from the Resistance forces severed the power lines, causing the flagship's main weapon to overload. The resulting explosion sent a shock wave of energy through the flagship, disabling its primary weapon and crippling the Andromedian fleet's ability to fight. In the chaos that followed, the Andromedian commanders tried to regroup, but their forces were scattered. The Resistance fighters pressed on, determined to ensure the flagship would be neutralized completely. The battle was fierce, but the once unassailable Andromedian flagship had lost its most critical asset, its weapon. The tide had turned. When the final explosive charge detonated, tearing through the flagship's remaining defenses, a sense of disbelief spread across the Resistance fleet. They had done it. They had neutralized the Andromedian flagship, and with it, their greatest weapon of destruction. The galaxy had watched in awe as news of the victory spread like wildfire. Humanity, once thought to be an insignificant race, had dealt a devastating blow to the Andromedian Empire. The Resistance had proven that humanity's resolve and resourcefulness could rival the most powerful forces in the galaxy. It was no longer a fight for survival. It was a fight for the future of the galaxy. And the first victory was just the beginning. In the aftermath, Ryder and his team stood together, battered but unbowed. They had proven that humanity could fight, that the Andromedians had underestimated them, and the Resistance was just getting started. The victory over the Andromedian flagship had proven that humanity was not only capable of surviving, but of fighting back and winning. The first major success sent shockwaves through the galaxy, igniting a flame of hope in the hearts of oppressed species and sparking a new wave of rebellion across the stars. What was once a scattered and small resistance movement was quickly evolving into a galactic force, uniting species and people who had long suffered under the Andromedian yoke. Captain Aidan Cole, the leader of the human resistance, knew that this victory was just the beginning. It had proven that the Andromedians could be defeated, but now it was time to build the foundation of a true rebellion, one capable of challenging the might of the entire Andromedian Empire. He understood that if humanity and its allies wanted to win, they would need to expand their forces rapidly, unite their factions, and develop new strategies to take the fight directly to the Andromedian heart. In the aftermath of their victory, human resistance bases sprang up on previously neutral planets. These bases became rallying points for the freedom fighters, survivors of conquered colonies, and those who had been oppressed by the Andromedians for generations. What had started as small sabotage missions and guerrilla attacks now evolved into a growing war machine. The Resistance's network expanded, connecting disparate cells and operations. Ryder, Captain Cole's most trusted lieutenant, was appointed as head of recruitment and military strategy. He was tasked with gathering the most skilled individuals from across the galaxy, including former military officers, engineers, and freedom fighters. The Resistance's ranks grew rapidly as soldiers from different species, united by a common cause, stepped forward to join the fight. Despite the rapid growth, the Resistance faced serious logistical challenges. They had to deal with scarce resources, outdated ships, and the need for weapons to equip their growing forces. However, human ingenuity came to the forefront. The Resistance relied heavily on stolen Andromedian tech, hacked weapons, repurposed warships, and salvage gadgets. The Resistance's engineers reverse-engineered Andromedian technology, upgrading it and developing improvised weapons that could match the strength of the Andromedian forces. One of the most significant breakthroughs came when Dr. Alara Trent, a human scientist and former Andromedian collaborator, discovered a way to neutralize the Andromedians' advanced cloaking technology. Her invention, a new form of energy pulse, allowed Resistance ships to track and disable the Andromedian cloaking devices, giving them an edge in space battles. This technology became a game-changer, allowing the Resistance to ambush Andromedian fleets and strike at their weakest points. Despite these successes, the Andromedians were not sitting idly by. Admiral Coran, a ruthless and strategic leader of the Andromedian fleet, was assigned to deal with a growing human threat. He knew the Resistance was growing stronger, and he was determined to crush it before it could gain too much momentum. Coran sent his elite forces to hunt down the Resistance's bases, attempting to eliminate the leadership and disrupt their operations. But Captain Cole's leadership, combined with the sheer determination of the Resistance fighters, thwarted every attempt. As the Resistance built its strength, Captain Cole's leadership and strategic genius became legendary. He was able to inspire the Resistance's diverse members, from humans to alien species, to set aside their differences and unite for a common cause. With each victory, the resistance grew more powerful, and more worlds joined their ranks. The Andromedian Empire, which had once seemed invincible, now found itself fighting on multiple fronts, struggling to hold its grip on the galaxy. The fight for freedom had begun. The resistance had become more than just a military force. It had become a symbol of hope, a beacon for those who had lived in fear under the Andromedian regime for too long. Humanity, once thought weak, was now leading the charge to free the galaxy from tyranny. In the quiet moments between battles, Captain Cole and Ryder would stand together, staring out at the stars. The task ahead was daunting, and victory was far from certain, but they both knew one thing for sure. Humanity had found its voice, and no matter the odds, they would fight until the Andromedian threat was no more. The human resistance had truly begun its rise, and nothing would stop them now. Humanity's first victory against the Andromedian Empire was a spark that ignited a fire across the galaxy. However, the challenges that followed proved that war was not won by one battle alone. While the human resistance continued to grow stronger, the Andromedian Empire, now in a state of fear and fury, was not willing to go down without a fight. Under the leadership of Admiral Quran, they began to counterattack with renewed viciousness, deploying advanced weaponry and elite soldiers to extinguish the growing rebellion before it could spread further. Despite their success, the resistance faced mounting pressure as the Andromedians retaliated by launching a series of devastating assaults on human-held planets and military bases. The resistance was forced to fall back and regroup, relying on their ingenuity and resilience to survive. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger, and that they needed a new strategy to not only survive, but to turn the tide in their favor. Captain Aidan Cole, once a beacon of hope for the resistance, began to realize that humanity's success wasn't just about their resilience or their willingness to fight. They needed to outsmart the Andromedians, to exploit their weaknesses, and most importantly, to unite the galaxy's oppressed species under a common banner. This turning point came when Captain Cole and his team uncovered a shocking secret. The Andromedian Empire's central command was deeply entrenched in an ancient alien artifact, an ancient piece of technology capable of manipulating gravitational fields and bending the very fabric of space-time. This weapon, the Ether Core, was the source of the Andromedians' near invincibility, enabling them to navigate and dominate space in ways previously thought impossible. If the Ether Core was destroyed, the Andromedians would lose their edge, and the resistance would gain an upper hand that could be decisive in the war. Ryder, Cole's most trusted officer, was chosen to lead the most dangerous mission of their campaign. With his tactical brilliance and knowledge of the Andromedian fleet, Ryder was tasked with infiltrating the Andromedian Citadel, where the Ether Core was stored, and destroying it. The plan was high risk. Failure meant not just the loss of the Resistance's best hope, but the annihilation of the last shred of humanity's fight. Success, however, could tip the balance of the war in humanity's favor, effectively neutralizing the Andromedians' greatest weapon. Ryder's team, including Dr. Alara Trent, the Resistance's brilliant engineer, and General Tyrosk, an alien leader who had joined the cause after his homeworld was devastated by the Andromedians, infiltrated the Citadel. They faced military patrols, booby traps, and force fields designed to prevent any intrusion. As Ryder navigated through the Citadel's labyrinthine hallways, he felt the weight of the mission pressing down on him. If they failed, the war would be lost. But if they succeeded, they would strike at the heart of the Andromedian Empire. In a daring and precise maneuver, Ryder's team infiltrated the chamber where the Ether Core was housed. The core, glowing with an ominous energy, was heavily guarded, protected by the most elite Andromedian soldiers. Ryder had one chance, one window to strike. The mission was delicate, requiring complete precision. As Alara Trent worked to disable the core's defenses, Ryder and General Tyrosk held off the Andromedian guards in a fierce firefight. It felt like an eternity, but finally, Alara succeeded in shutting down the core's shields, and Ryder launched the explosive charge that would destroy the Ether Core. The explosion rocked the Citadel, sending shockwaves through the Andromedian fleet. The Ether Core was destroyed, and with it, The Andromedians lost their space-time manipulation technology. Without the ability to warp space, their fleet's dominance was gone. The Andromedian ships, once capable of instantaneous travel, were now vulnerable. Ryder and his team barely escaped the Citadel as alarms blared and the Andromedian fleet scrambled to regain control of the situation. As the Resistance fleet watched the ether core explode in the distance, they knew that the tides of war had shifted. The turning point had come. The Andromedians had lost their greatest weapon, and the Resistance had proved that they could strike directly at the heart of their oppressors. However, the mission wasn't without sacrifice. General Tyrosk was gravely injured in the final battle, and the Resistance fleet had suffered significant casualties. But the victory was undeniable. The galaxy had seen that humanity, despite being underestimated, was capable of taking on the galactic giants and winning. The galaxy's oppressed species now looked to humanity for guidance, and as the human resistance regrouped, they saw a new path ahead. The fight wasn't over, but the Andromedian Empire's grip had been cracked. Hope surged, and humanity's resolve had never been stronger. Now, the true fight for liberation would begin. The destruction of the ether core had delivered a critical blow to the Andromedian Empire, but it had also unleashed a terrifying wave of retaliation. The once mighty Andromedian fleet was now fragmented and vulnerable, but Admiral Coran, the Andromedians' ruthless supreme commander, was not one to surrender easily. In the wake of the explosion, the Andromedians rallied their remaining forces under his command, determined to crush the human resistance and erase the stain of defeat once and for all. Humanity's victory was bittersweet, for while their allies cheered, the galaxy's balance was still at risk. The Resistance now faced its greatest challenge, the final confrontation with the Andromedian Empire, one last decisive battle to determine whether humanity would thrive or be crushed underfoot. Captain Aidan Cole, the leader of the human resistance, stood at the helm of his flagship, the Elysium, preparing for the final assault. His crew was battle-worn, their ships patched together with salvaged Andromedian technology. But there was a fire in their hearts, a drive to finish what they had started. The victory over the ether core had reignited the flames of hope across the galaxy, and now humanity's resolve was stronger than ever. The battle ahead would test them to their limits, but they had one critical advantage. They knew their enemy. The Resistance had gathered a coalition of species who had suffered under the Andromedian regime, and together they stood ready to face the final battle. Ryder, now a veteran leader of the Resistance, had become a symbol of humanity's strength, and his tactical genius would be key in securing victory. Ryder had a personal stake in this conflict, having lost family and friends to the Andromedian brutality. He understood the stakes better than anyone. He wasn't just fighting for survival. He was fighting for the future of the galaxy. As the final battle drew near, Ryder and his team worked tirelessly to outmaneuver Admiral Coran's fleet. The human fleet, along with their new allies, was preparing to launch an all-out assault on the Andromedian homeworld. The Resistance's plan was audacious: breach the Andromedian defense systems, strike at Coran's flagship, and destroy the Empire's heart once and for all. The battle began with a blinding wave of energy as the Resistance fleet clashed with the Andromedian ships. The Andromedians, still formidable despite the loss of their ether core, retaliated with a ferocity that only a wounded empire could muster. Their advanced weaponry and highly trained soldiers had wreaked havoc across the galaxy, but now they were facing an enemy determined to win at all costs. Ryder, leading a strike team aboard a captured Andromedian cruiser, infiltrated the Andromedian flagship, where Admiral Coran awaited. The infiltration was perilous, as Ryder and his team navigated through the flagship's complex defense systems, fighting off elite Andromedian soldiers who had sworn to protect their command structure at all costs. As Ryder approached Coran's command room, the weight of the moment was not lost on him. This was the final showdown, the culmination of everything humanity had fought for. Admiral Coran, standing at the helm of his flagship, radiated an aura of calculated menace. His once unshakable confidence had been shattered by humanity's unexpected victories. Corran's strategy had been based on the belief that humans were nothing more than pests, but the destruction of the ether core and the ongoing successes of the resistance had shattered that illusion. He was now fighting for his very survival, and he knew that if humanity succeeded in breaching his flagship, the Andromedian Empire would fall. The confrontation between Ryder and Corran was fierce and brutal. Corran, towering in his advanced bioengineered armor, was a match for Ryder's skill and determination. The two leaders clashed in hand-to-hand combat, their weapons humming with energy as they exchanged blows. The intensity of the battle reflected the tension of the entire galaxy, as both sides knew that the outcome would reshape the future. But Ryder was driven by something Corran didn't understand: the human will to survive. Every punch Ryder threw was not just about defeating Corran. It was about ensuring that humanity would never be silenced again. The human spirit was unbreakable, and it was that indomitable spirit that Corran had underestimated all along. In the final moments of the battle, Ryder landed a devastating blow to Corran, disarming him and knocking him to the floor. With Corran's defeat, the Andromedian leadership crumbled. Ryder had taken down the heart of the Empire, and with it, the galaxy's oppressors had been toppled. The Resistance's victory was absolute. As the Andromedian flagship fell from the sky, the galaxy watched in awe, knowing that humanity had finally freed the galaxy from the oppression it had endured for centuries. The battle had been long and costly, but it had proven one undeniable truth: humans were not weak. They were survivors. They were warriors. And now they were the future of the galaxy. As Captain Cole and his crew stood victorious, staring out over the wreckage of the Andromedian Empire, they knew that humanity's journey was far from over. The resistance had risen, and they had done the impossible. The galaxy was free, and humanity would rebuild it, stronger than ever before. The final confrontation with the Andromedian Empire had been long, brutal, and costly. But the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had proven that against all odds, they could not only survive but also rise. And in doing so, they had brought an end to centuries of oppression. With Admiral Corran's defeat, the Andromedian fleet was shattered, and the once feared empire crumbled. The human resistance, led by Captain Aidan Cole and his most trusted officer, Ryder, had not just fought for survival, but had secured a new future for the galaxy. What began as a desperate fight for survival had transformed into a victory that would be remembered for generations. As the Andromedian stronghold fell and their fleet scattered, the freedom fighters who had once lived in the shadows began to rebuild, forging alliances with the oppressed species of the galaxy. The human-led resistance became a symbol of hope, not just for humanity, but for all those who had once thought their struggle was futile. With the Andromedian threat neutralized, humanity took its place among the stars, not as subjugated remnants, but as a powerful, unified force. The galaxy, once divided and trembling under Andromedian control, now had the opportunity to rebuild under a new order, one led by human resilience, ingenuity, and unity. But even as the dust settled and the resistance celebrated, Captain Cole and Ryder knew the battle for the galaxy was not truly over. New challenges would arise, new threats would emerge, but humanity had proven that it was capable of great things. The spirit that had carried them through these trials would carry them through whatever came next. Humanity was no longer the underdog in the galaxy. They were its defenders, and the future had never looked brighter.